Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name's Ashra and today we're going to talk about the top 5 worst responses that I've gotten to disclosing my autism diagnosis. These are all real responses that I've gotten and they're all extremely stereotypically bad responses, which is really funny that I can check all of the bad stereotypical disclosure responses off my box. I've gotten all of them, but these are the top 5 worst ones. And we're gonna go in order from number 5, which was the least emotionally impacting, to number 1, which was the worst, the most emotionally impacting, the one that hurt me the most. I am not going to be giving out people's names or information. I will just say what they were to me, whether they were a professor that I worked for or a family member. I'm not going to give the details because I don't want to throw anyone under the bus or under the rug. What's the phrase? Throw anyone under... I don't know what that phrase is. I don't want to hurt anyone by talking about this, but I'm going to be honest. These are the worst responses I've gotten. So, number 5. The kind of silliest one, funniest one in my opinion, was a time when I went to a concert with my mom. This was several years ago. I think it was right about the time that I got diagnosed, or it might have even been a little bit before. It might have been when I was self-diagnosed, but not yet professionally diagnosed. And I was really struggling at this concert. I was having a hard time. It was very loud. I didn't have the proper accommodations that I needed because I didn't know what I needed yet. I didn't even fully accept my diagnosis yet. And so I was really struggling. And I was sitting next to this woman. And we started chatting a little bit. She told me that she's a psychologist. And I was like, oh wow, that's awesome, because I want to be a researcher. I want to get my PhD doing autism research. And she was like, why? And I was like, because I think I'm autistic. I just am really high masking, which is why people often can't tell right away. Her response was, oh, high masking like COVID masking, you wear a mask so people can't tell? And I was like, no, high masking autistic, I hide my autistic traits. And she was like, oh, I've never heard of that. She's a psychologist and she's never heard of masking. That's a problem. That's a big problem. This was a few years ago. So I will say masking was not being talked about as much. But to be a psychologist and have no idea whatsoever, to have never heard about autistic masking, it is completely embarrassing and shameful to not know what masking is as a psychologist. That's wild. I think it's one of the funnier bad responses I've gotten, because that's just so silly to think that I was talking about COVID masking when I said that I'm high masking autistic. That's really silly to me, but it's also really seriously a problem, and that's not funny to know that there's a psychologist. There's many psychologists out there that don't even know what masking is. It's just unbelievable to me. How can you be working in the field of psychology? How can you be taking on clients? How can you be helping people when you don't even know what masking is? And masking also, it's something that applies to a lot of things. It's not just specifically an autistic thing. A lot of other people engage in masking for lots of different reasons. And to not know what masking is, to not even be remotely familiar with the term as a psychologist, unbelievable. So yeah, that's number 5 worst response that I got to disclosing my autism diagnosis. Now, number 4. When I was working as a teaching assistant at a university, which I'm not going to name because I don't want to get in trouble, but a lot of you probably know because I've named it accidentally before, but there was a professor that I was working for, and she invited me to come to some lab meetings to get involved, and I was excited and sure, yeah, I would love to come to that. So I went, and there was this girl that I always sat next to who we kind of became friends a little bit, and eventually after meeting a few times, I told her that I'm autistic. That is why I want to do autism research and blah, blah, blah. And so the number 4 worst response that I've gotten to disclosing my autism diagnosis was the response she gave me, which is I told her that I was autistic and she said, I'm so sorry to hear that. She basically said that she felt so bad for me. She was so sorry. And she basically was thinking of autism like a disease. It was this horrible thing that it was like I told her that I had a disease, and she was like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry to hear that. That's so sad. Like, I'm sorry. Like, she reacted like I had told her someone passed away. I was really taken aback by that because, number one, we were in a psychology lab meeting, so you'd think that people would be a little bit more aware of how to react to things like that. Number two, we were at a very, very, I don't know what the word is, a top tier university where the people are known for being highly, highly intelligent in their field. And this person reacted that way. Yeah, more than anything, I was just like surprised because that was one of the first times that I disclosed being autistic to somebody who I wasn't really close to. And to get that response, like I've heard other people talk about getting bad responses before, getting responses like that. And I was like, oh yeah, but like I feel like that doesn't really happen. It does really happen, and it did happen to me. She literally responded, I'm sorry to hear that. And like she was devastated on my behalf. Yeah, it was just a really weird moment. I wanted to do a ton of education. I wanted to educate her, and I wanted to change her perspective and tell her she was wrong for responding that way, but I just was like, it's fine. Because in the moment, you don't always have the energy to correct people, and it's not your job to do that either. So sometimes you just have to be like, whatever. She doesn't know what she's talking about. She has no idea that what she just said was problematic and harmful, and at the same time, I don't have the energy to fix this, so I'm just gonna let it be. But yeah, that was a bad one. So number 3, this is related to the last one because it was actually the same professor. This was when I first started working for the professor, before she had invited me to any lab meetings or anything. It was like our first meet and greet. She said, tell me something about yourself. And of course, my brain immediately went to, I'm autistic. So I said, I'm autistic. Her response was really bad. Basically what she said is that she thought I was absolutely crazy. She used the word crazy for labeling myself that way. She thought it was unbelievable. She thought it was a waste and like a cop-out and an excuse. And she said that all to my face. I fawned because I didn't know what to do. I basically was like, yeah, I know, like it seems weird or like unbelievable that I'm autistic, maybe to you, but I am. And it's like been really helpful to label myself like that because X, Y, and Z. But I didn't defend myself as well as I should have because I was working for her. I wanted her to like me, and I didn't want her as this super well-known in the psychology field professor to feel like I was correcting her. I didn't think that would bode well for me in the position that I was in. That was a really bad response because not only was it in and of itself not a nice way to respond to me, it was worse because of the fact that she is who she is. And the fact that she responded to me that way was so invalidating, so dismissive, and so disheartening to know that we have people high up in the psychology field. Again, like example 1, we have psychologists who don't know what high masking is. We have psychologists who do not understand autism in any way outside of stereotypical views. These people are still working in the field. These people are still conducting therapy, still giving out diagnoses, and they are so ill-informed and uneducated on up-to-date autism research that they're going around responding to people that way. And even if deep down she didn't believe me, she didn't want to believe me, she thought it was crazy or dumb, it was so unprofessional for her to react that way to me. She could have easily just redirected the conversation if she didn't want to talk about it. She could have said like, okay, and moved on from it. She could have done so many other things. Even if she didn't want to entertain that conversation, she could have still done so many other things that would have been maybe not nice, but still professional, rather than being so inappropriate in telling me that she thought I was crazy for labeling myself that way. That is so inappropriate. It is so unprofessional. It is so invalidating. It is so mean. I wish that I had told the university, but it's been like a few years now. Honestly, she's so old, I don't even know if she'll be around that much longer, but that was a bad one. Now moving on to number 2. This one may not sound as bad, but emotionally and internally, it hurt me more than the other ones. I went to this sort of party thing that a person was hosting, I already was feeling really anxious because of the situation. I just don't really like going to group events or hangouts. We were doing something and like it came up that I ended up disclosing to like the entire group. Someone in the group said, not in a nice way, in like an invalidating way, "Oh, well, honey, we're all a little autistic. Like that's not a thing here. Like everyone here is a little autistic." It's the way that they said it. It wasn't like they were trying to like invite me in. It was like they were trying to say, don't bring up your autism as an excuse because it doesn't work here because we're all a little autistic. So it felt exclusionary because of the way that they said it. And it also felt annoying and hurtful because that's not true. Not everyone is a little autistic. And everyone like laughed, and I didn't even exactly hear them in the moment. It took me a while to process the fact that they even said that. And so even if I wanted to say something back, like the moment had already gone way past by the time that I had realized what they said and the way that they said it, specifically the way that they said it. After that, I never went back to any of those hangouts again because that just rubbed me the wrong way so badly that I just didn't feel welcome anymore after that. I felt like I wasn't seen. If someone says they're autistic and the response is, "Oh, we're all a little bit autistic," that means you're avoiding them. It means you're avoiding seeing them as autistic because instead of saying like, "Oh, okay, good to know, like what can we do to make sure that you feel good here?" Or "Good to know, like let's move on from that, like now we know," whatever. Instead of saying that, what you're saying is, "No, that doesn't work here. We're all a little bit autistic, so you're fine." It's not the nice thing that people think it is. Like people think it's nice to say that because it makes you feel like, "Oh, you're okay to be here because we're all a little autistic." It doesn't feel like that on the receiver's end. It feels like you're dismissing me. You're not seeing my struggle. It's like if you had a food allergy, let's say. Let's say you're allergic to dairy and they're serving fettuccine Alfredo and you said, "Oh, sorry, I can't eat this. I'm allergic to dairy." And the host says, or whoever says, "Oh, well, we're all a little bit allergic to dairy and we're fine, so you should be fine." That's how it feels. Dismissive. And like you're not safe. And so that's number 2. Now for the number 1 spot. This was the most impactful and the most upsetting because it happened with a family member who I was disclosing to. This was one of the first people that I disclosed to, and it was while I was in the process of self-diagnosing. So I was not even fully self-diagnosed yet. I remember calling this person after doing like a whole info dump and explaining everything and being so detailed and so fastidious in talking about how it explained me. The response that this person gave me was very harsh. And they said, and I quote, "I am 100% sure that you are not autistic." And it felt like being hit with a ton of bricks to, number 1, be talking to somebody very close to me and hoping that they give me a good response. Number 2, feel like even after I dumped everything, all of the information I had, feeling so confident in my ability to explain all of this. And number 3, feeling really vulnerable. Even though I was internally sure, I was still really scared to tell people, and this was one of the first times that I was. And they knew that. For them to respond that way, it showed me a lot about them. Yeah, that was the worst response that I've ever gotten. It was just funny too, because that person did not know anything about autism. So to say I'm 100% certain that you're not autistic is really silly, because how could you know that when you don't know anything about autism? You also don't know anything about what's happening internally. In my experience, you can never say that you're 100% sure somebody isn't something that is an internal experience because you are not inside of their body. So yeah, that was the worst response I ever got. That is a summary of the top 5 worst responses that I've ever gotten to disclosing my autism diagnosis. Let me know in the comments any of the bad responses that you've gotten. Hopefully hearing from each other can make us all feel a little bit less alone in this journey and a little bit less weighed down by all of the negativity, and maybe like we can come together and even maybe laugh about some of the bad responses, because sometimes they're just so silly that they're comical. And to end this video, I want to say that if you're autistic, I believe you. You're welcome here. You are allowed to be openly autistic, and I wish that everybody could feel safe in being openly autistic, even though I know that's not possible. But thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. It helps me out a lot, and I will talk to you again very soon. Bye.